Yeah, Beto O'Rourke was on Pod Save. He's really the first Democrat I'm seeing fully throw Biden under the bus, and that needs to happen. Given his horrible approval rating, how standing by him was a huge part of sinking Kamala Harris in the 2024 race against Trump, and just because if the Democrats want to regain the trust of the American public, they have to distance themselves from an administration that presided over a genocide and also lost the trust of the public with trying to encase Biden and prevent real democracy via a primary. So I don't know what Beto's political future is, but I like what he said here.
Everything that went on in 24.
Just to be clear, Biden should not have run again. And to be even more clear, he failed this country in the most important job that he had. In fact, the entire rationale for his presidency the first time and the rationale he tried to sell us on for his attempt to run for re-election. Only I can stop Donald Trump. And he failed to do that. And it's not just you and me, but our kids and grandkids and the generations that follow that might have to pay the price for this. We might very well lose, the greatest country that this world has ever known. And it might be in part because of the decision that Biden and those around him made to run for re-election instead of having an open primary where the greatest talent that the Democratic Party can muster could be on that stage to have a competition of ideas and track record and vision and really excite not just Democrats, but the people of this country who did want change. I mean, if anything was clear coming out of 2024, they wanted change. And to literally run the oldest guy who many people accurately, to your point, said, I just don't think he is capable of doing this. And I know that I saw the Congresswoman and the Congressman on CNN saying he's running circles around us in the briefing rooms behind closed doors. It doesn't add up with what I'm seeing with my own lying eyes. I think that credibility problem is going to persist up until when Democrats say we fucked up and we made a terrible mistake. And it didn't just hurt our ability to win election in a political campaign. It deeply and gravely, and perhaps we'll see irrevocably, harmed this country. And so, you and many others got out there and told the truth. And I don't think you did it in a crass or brazen or mean way. I think you said, hey, maybe we should have this conversation. And we're absolutely trashed for doing it. Others, I think, saw that, were concerned, but worried that, Biden's already out there. He's going. Am I going to hurt him and his chances and our ability to defeat Trump if I further weaken him? I was definitely hearing stuff like that. I supported, folks who were behind the uncommitted movement in Michigan, not because I wanted to hurt Biden or Kamala Harris, but because I was, I just couldn't stand what was happening in Gaza. I didn't like America's complicity in that. I knew President Biden had the power to do something. And here were people, speaking of the civil rights and voting rights movement, who were peacefully, democratically, nonviolently protesting to get the president's attention, to give him the power to do the right thing. And when I spoke on behalf of those who were doing that in Michigan, and in the same breath saying, I want to defeat Donald Trump, and if Biden is our nominee, we should vote for him. The attacks were, you're undermining the president, you're weakening him in front of this election. Why don't you just shut up and stand with him?
I hadn't seen the second part of that clip where he brought up Gaza.
Yeah, I think these two things are at odds, and for whatever it's worth, good for him to bring that up, because I think a lot of this recrimination about Biden, and yes, he should not have run for re-election. He made that promise when he ran the first time. I at different times, he looked more or less competent at various times. And frankly, having grown up during the Reagan administration, I know what a president who's completely checked out mentally, what an administration can still do in that instance, right? And so, but I think a lot of this is about avoiding the position that Biden and then Harris basically took regarding Gaza and Israel. I think this is a way of not being held to account for those specific things.
He linked those things, though, in that answer. He
did,
those.
yes, Beto did. But I have a feeling, like, my sense of, like, all the other sort of, like, talk about this is a way of avoiding, because I'm not convinced, frankly, that Harris couldn't have won if the campaign was run better. You know, this is all, like, sort of, like, tied into Biden. But what about the people who are around, and the Biden people who were around Harris? And I think had she run, had she distance herself from it. I mean, it was a failure of her campaign, too, to distance herself. She, at that point, was the candidate. And if you're going to be president, you have to be able to say, that was my former president.
She's not that kind of leader. I mean, what we were hoping for at that time was, I thought she's a standard Democrat and a kind of a bureaucrat, but that's better than the alternative. She's certainly not a transformative political leader. And that was reflected in her inability to understand that she needed to not get bullied by Biden on the phone saying no daylight and why don't you hire my whole campaign staff. David Plouffe is now turning around and like trying to say because he was brought in for Harris in particular. He's the one who's clearly sourcing this, throwing Jen O'Malley Dillon under the bus, which it's appropriate. But like, you see what I'm saying? It's
all a CYA project.
Sure, and Plouffe is probably more correct than the Biden people, but we're redoing the same wars from the Obama administration, which is the Biden people are very insular. They found the Obama folks elitist and smug, and that's probably correct. But the Obama people also were more effective. But even at the end of the day, none of this is effective anymore. Like, the party is stuck 15 years ago. And that's part of the point is like, these are two bald men fighting over a comb. Yeah. What Beto is doing is correct. He's moving the part. He's trying to wash the party's hands of Biden, because, as he says there, it was a credibility issue. When you're not being democratically responsive to people wanting input in who the nominee is going to be, you and I have a disagreement on this. So yeah. But I actually, can you flesh that out? Because I don't know why.
I just think that's overstated. I think I think the problem is he was old, and I think there was a material problem with that, and he should have dropped out without a doubt. But Harris could have won. Like, Harris ran, I think I
don't think that's inconsistent with what I'm saying about the credibility problem that he created.
No, he created a credibility problem in the sense that they said he's fine, and then it turned out he wasn't fine. I mean, we all saw that debate, and everybody was relying on him, but that credibility could have been isolated to him. Like, he said he could do it, and he couldn't.
But that's not like it's built up by bringing in the public into the primary process. Like, you don't have credibility just by like him,
I understand a primary process would have been better, but not when he dropped out.
Agreed. You and I said there could only be Harris. That Blitz primary stuff was it seemed like Newsom wanted to get in and Pelosi was on board with that. That's like what the rumor is. I don't know if that's true, but my point is just that him running again at all is the original sin.
Yes.
There's a lot that could have happened for 2 years of Democrats advertising what they stood for
100%.
And having a fight. There were 4 years of Biden, especially the final 2 years, of Biden not being able to communicate, not being able to sell what he was doing to the public. And even if he was able to, I still think it would have been an issue, given the state of the economy and given how people are experiencing the way that the economy was, and the administration was saying that everything was okay, and then of course the genocide, because those two things work together. Like, I saw this protest footage of a woman saying, our tax dollars are going to this, like screaming about it. And I that's where you can connect foreign policy with people's material conditions, because people can conceive of like, this is going out of my paycheck, and they understand this is going to the federal government. And when the results are not like I'm getting health care or I'm getting a child tax credit that's helping me or something, what they're seeing is prices going up, rent never being higher, record credit card debt. And what do I see my government is doing? Oh, this baby that's blown to pieces. So like, I guess
my point is that, you know, the Biden story in my mind has very, while all true, it's unclear to me, like where the accountability is in this story. Like what, like, you know, there's a lesson to be learned in terms of Gaza. There's a lesson to be learned in terms of like Harris not having a clear message. There's a lesson to be learned in her not, you know, saying that she was a change agent relative to Biden or to, you know, the establishment. There's a lesson to be learned that she went around with Republicans and basically said to Donald Trump, you be the change guy, you be the outsider again, even though you've been the president, and completely enmeshed with the Republican Party. All those, there's lesson to be learned. The lesson to be learned with Joe Biden is, I guess, you know, like don't have an 80-some-year-old run for president. But who are there's literally like a dozen people.
It's more than Biden. It's more than Biden. It's Clyburn. It's that's what's, I mean, the gerontocracy and the corruption, it's all together, and the AIPAC stuff, like, but that class of Democrats, there's a reason Biden and Clyburn were like this. I mean, and so I think it's more than just him. I think that it does create a broader credibility problem for the party that's reflected in the poll numbers. And that's what David Hogg is talking about. I don't know the specifics of what he's trying to do with the primary thing, but broadly, I think it's definitely a good thing.
Well, we definitely need we need to get out this leadership. I think it definitely has to go. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.